Welcome back to another Steel Division Normandy 44 replay cast, and this time it's gonna be a replay off the whatever site that hosts replays. Not sure what it's called. The two sides are gonna be Orlando Bloom playing as the 2nd Infantry, Unknown playing as the 15th Scottish Infantry, and then on the German side we're gonna have Chivalrous Woolley playing as the 17th SS, and Andranik, the anti-kebab, playing as the 12th SS. We'll see how this goes. It's on Colombelle, as you can see, 2v2. Tons of 2-inch carriers, or rather 3 2-inch carriers, which is, I believe, the highest you can go for. No, you can go for 4 at the start with the British. Tons of, looks like, rifles and a Piat squad, 1 leader squad, and also 1 Vickers from the Brits. Then we have another Vickers in the center. Wait, what? The British player is just everywhere. He's also got scouts on the left. And then the Americans seem to have a Ranger leader squad. A couple of... what are these? Rifles? I think so. I think rifles. Then a 50 cal machine gun. And looks like a... It's trained by a Jeep, so I'm guessing it's a 75mm because so far he hasn't really bought that much. Oh, and then he also goes on the right side of the river, interestingly, because he has the amphibious stuff. He's gonna go to the 2 flanks, and he's gonna leave the Brit to the center. That's an interesting little choice. We also have a M7 Priest direct fire, and then a couple of units on the right side. Looks like a AT gun and a couple of Ranger squads. Then on the right side we have the German mechanized with a Schwimmwagen with some kind of AT gun trained up, possibly a 75mm, then a MG42. It looks like tons of SS infantry and maybe even Panzergrenadiers, an MG42, tons of mortars, a couple of them in fact. I won't think just normal mortars. Then on the left side for 12th SS we see a AT gun, a couple of infantry squads, a piece of recon, Firefly, and some more recon, and another AT gun. Very defensive play from Andranik, the anti-kebab, because I'm guessing he's really afraid that the early game advantage of the American forces can overwhelm him in an area with a lot of trees and cover, whereas his only weapon is the Firefly. But on the left side, I think the Firefly could you do with a little bit more of a aggressive playstyle. Very aggressive indeed from the Humber AA, actually, just charging straight to the middle road, knowing that its wheeled approach the fact that it's wheeled makes it very fast on a road, but unfortunately it finds a 50mm path, which is going to be the end of it. So very unfortunate. Tried to rush in, did some damage to the SS Stoßtrupp, but not really enough. We have a huge fight for the center. Looks like one of the units the Germans were trying to bring up was destroyed by the Vickers machine gun. There's also the M1919 machine gun from the Rangers, doing some good suppression work on the Germans. There's some rifles moving about, and what's really going to win the fight, I think, for the Allies are these 3 carriers with the mortars. They're extremely effective, and they have a huge supply of ammunition, 80. They also have a pretty huge rate of fire compared to something like 2 German mortars. And what really makes them superior to the 2 German mortars is that 2 German mortars, if the carriers can counter battery and fire at them, they're going to die very quickly, whereas the carriers are basically protected due to the fact that they're armored vehicles. On the flanks, you don't see all that much action. Looks like the right side is just held by a couple of units and not going to be seeing all that much. 76mm AT gun going to cover, and 50mm for Germans to make sure no vehicles can make a push there. And indeed, it does look like the British carriers are trying to target the mortars, although they're just firing everywhere. The M7 Priest is also trying to approach, but it has to be very, very afraid of these Stoßtrupp that are kind of hidden in the building so far, but not really too far away from Priest. Now, this Priest is actually direct fire. It doesn't have an indirect fire capabilities, and despite the fact that it's supposed to, which is weird. Here comes a bomber, actually, a Ju-87. So the Stuka coming in, very slow, very powerful in terms of its bomb. We'll see whether or not it can deal some damage. misses completely. I'm not sure what it was targeting. I'm guessing it was targeting the 2-inch carriers. But yes, the dive bombing attack could have better been used on the M7 Priest, I believe. Or even something like the machine guns, like the Vickers, and especially the M1919 Ranger machine gun. Unfortunate for the Germans, as right now they're being completely pushed back. Another machine gun going to take out the 50mm pack, thus kind of opening up the way for armored vehicles like this Priest to move up and support the push. We do see a nice usage of the smoke barrage from, I'm guessing, the 2-inch carriers. They appear to have full smoke, so I wonder what actually smoked there. But unfortunately, the rifles that were pushed up to deal with the SS Stoßtrupp didn't really work out all that well. I'm guessing it was this mortar that smoked. The mortar that is now being redeployed. On the left side, we do see that the Americans... What happened to the Firefly? It's moving back. Not sure what it's doing. I really wish I could see the amount of kills that it has. That would definitely improve my chances of actually knowing what happened with that. But yes, it does look like the Germans are just going to leave the area in a defensive posture and then focus on trying to prevent this push on the right side. The SS are surrounded in the building, and there's only one guy left, so he's going to die soon enough. The 2 mortars from the Germans are still actually working to try to pin down the American infantry and British infantry that's pushing through the center of the map. There is a 259 half-track, obviously very strong autocannon. Well, no, that's actually not an autocannon. That's the anti-tank one. Still, very dangerous to enemy infantry. That is an autocannon. 20 mil. Yeah, that is an autocannon. No, never mind. Yes, so it was actually the one that I was thinking about. Doing pretty good work and suppressing the American infantry that's trying to push through the forest, but that's still not enough to repel the push through the center. The Allies just keep to feed infantry into the center of the map, and that's kind of overwhelming the Germans. Also, thanks to the overwhelming artillery support coming in from the Brit player, that's going to be very good. There's also a Bofors and a American, I believe, Mustang. I believe it's a Mustang, or maybe it's a Spitfire, but I believe there's no Spitfires in Phase A. But there's definitely an Allied fighter circling overhead every once in a while. So the Americans and the British are trying to kind of equip themselves against the German Stuka that has been deployed on the field. What is interesting is that the Germans are coming in with a 170mm Phase A off-map artillery from the Goods von Berlingen division, which is a pretty useful artillery unit that can deal some pretty good damage in Phase A, especially against something like support weapons like the 76mm AT gun that's right now trying to fire at Cromwell that Anti-Kebab went for. But much more importantly, I would think it's going to be used against the building entrenched American and British troops in the factory area of the map. Looks like the Ju-87D is going to be called in to deal with the 76mm AT gun, which is exactly the job that it's meant to do. But here comes the Spitfire. Actually, indeed, it is a Spitfire, along with the supporting fire of the Bofors, going to be panicking the Ju-87 before it can drop its payload, and I think it's going to die because the Spitfire's excellent maneuverability is going to be allowing it to keep up. In fact, even the Bofors takes out that very slow-going German aircraft, so that is very unfortunate, a big loss for the Germans. And indeed, it does look like the Germans are kind of on the back foot. The Americans will be getting, or the Americans and British will be getting the total victory in 36 minutes. Looks like the Germans are asking their teammate for supplies. That's Anti-Kebab asking for supplies for his half-track. Although I'm not sure exactly what kind of supplies his friend can provide him. Looks like on the left side, the Americans did try to do a bit of a push with these Ranger support units, which are Vet 2 interesting. He went for the veteran ones instead of the quantity. But the veterancy doesn't really matter all that much when they run into a fortified line of light vehicles and Panzer Grenadiers, supported indeed by a 107mm mortar, which is going to be effective enough to at least pin down the enemy infantry in the woods. But that's not going to be able to do much against the half-track with the 2 MG42s, so the MG42 is still going to be able to destroy the American infantry. He's going to have to bring up the AT gun if he wants this push to succeed, to at least force back the half-track, if not completely destroy it. we do have a bit of a push from the Americans on the right side, it would seem, bringing up a couple of armored transports with a Ranger Marauder and looks like a rifle squad, but unfortunately he's going to find the 50mm Pack AT gun and an MG42 blocking the way, which is exactly the reason why Anti-Kebab and Chivalrous Wooly, and that's actually only Chivalrous Wooly, left these units there to begin with. Definitely a good idea to keep that area covered and not completely defenseless. Looks like the Americans are still pushing in the center with the support of British carriers. They're gonna start to run out of ammunition soon despite their ridiculous supply. Here comes a huge counterattack from the Germans. 5 infantry groups being brought in. Looks like all Panzergrenadiers. Although quantity isn't really gonna matter all that much against the rank carrier, not rank carriers, the 2-inch carriers, because once the carriers can start to hit this giant group of infantry, it's going to panic it entirely unless they spread out really quick, which is what I think they're trying to do. It's also going to be supported by the Firefly in the center, and that's really good because the Firefly so far hasn't really been used all that aggressively, which is in my opinion a bit of a shame. We're going to see how well the artillery barrage is going to go for. I wonder again if I switch to the German side if it's going to tell me where the artillery barrage is being called in. I would like to do that very much. That's Chivalrous Wooly. Looks like the British still have the Spitfires circling about, but not really doing all that much. And yes, indeed, it does look like some of the German units are starting to be destroyed. I think that the the half-track calling in the artillery has been forced to retreat by, I'm guessing, mortar fire, which is very unfortunate. So far, the Priest hasn't really been used all that effectively because I think that Orlando Bloom is trying to use it as a artillery unit when it is indeed a direct fire supportive vehicle. Looks like the 2 Spitfires are just circling about trying to pin down enemy units. They absolutely did some good work in destroying the AT gun on the right side, so a bit of a vehicle push from something like the Stuart could do a really good job in breaking through the German lines on the right. On the left, still a bit of a stalemate, and looks like in the center of the map, there's just a bit of a lull in the action, so I'm going to speed it up a little bit. A few German units are going to be brought in, and soon enough, in fact, we are in Phase B. We're in Phase B, and I wonder whether or not the Germans can make use of their new units. Yes, indeed, it looks like Anti-Kebab is bringing in a Panzer IV-J. Definitely pressed for points for bringing out a Panzer IV-J at 130 points instead of something like a Panther at 240 or a Panzer IV-H at 160, I believe. Not sure. But yes, he absolutely needed the infantry support, so he brings in, looks like 2 Panzergrenadiers with half-track and a recon unit. I wonder what kind of recon. Probably a Spähtrupp of some kind in a half-track, trying to overrun the right side of the map. With sheer weight of both numbers and infantry, and also a vehicle to support, and also looks like a anti-aircraft gun, which is going to be useful against something like this Thunderbolt that has now been called in with bombs from the Americans. So Thunderbolt with bombs is going to be fairly effective. Here also comes a few Maltiers carrying guns. I'm guessing that's a SF-18, the 180mm howitzer. Because that's called my Maltier. Yes, indeed, it is a big howitzer. Maybe not an SF-18, but I'm not sure. But that is definitely going to help in the center if those howitzers can be used well. The problem with these 2 howitzers is that the Americans and the British have air superiority. So the Americans and British are going to be able to call in airstrikes on these howitzers much more easily than the Germans are going to be able to call in airstrikes on these howitzers that are being brought in by the British. Looks like 25-pounders, 3 of them, in fact, being brought in by Bedfords, which is a pretty big expense, actually. I mean, of course, the 2 German howitzers are also pretty big expense, but the Allies were winning in the center, and they have a couple of where did the mortars go? I'm guessing that the 2-inch carriers got destroyed by something. Not sure how that's possible. I'm guessing that it was either the artillery half-track, which is now being brought in as a fire support unit with its machine gun. I'm guessing it used all of its barrages. And indeed, it looks like the American forces are definitely thinned out in the center, so very good usage of that unit. Only 100 points and can be very useful. Also, these 2 howitzers are very close together. I would definitely spread them out a little bit more. It would make it a little bit harder to control them, but it would make it a little bit harder also for the enemy to attack them, because right now, if the free 25-pounders decide to counter battery fire on these howitzers, which indeed it looks like the Americans are, is that the Americans? Yeah, no, that's actually the British. It looks like the Allies are marking the howitzers for the barrage. If they attack there, it's gonna be panicking, at least panicking, if not outright destroying both of them. Looks like the 25-pounders destroyed a German anti-air gun of some kind. Can't find it anymore. I'm not sure if there's a wreckage for anti-air guns. But yes, that's very unfortunate. And it's going to allow the American Air Force, as you can see, the Thunderbolt coming in. Of course, there's also a 37mm flak and a flak Vierling, which is going to be the big anti-air piece of the Germans in the area. They're still going to be able to at least panic the Thunderbolt, which means that the Allies are going to have to do a bit of a concentrated air attack, or maybe even clear out the enemy AA with artillery fire. As oh no, that's actually the carriers over here who's flying. Never mind. So it looks like the Allied artillery is indeed focusing on the German AA, absolutely demolishing one of these flak Vierlings. On the left side, another Thunderbolt, gonna be much more free to do things, and looks like these Panzergrenadiers in the open are gonna get bombed, but not really a lot of damage. Only one man being destroyed in the bomb blast, and not even the half-track falling to the German or American ordnance, which is definitely a problem, because these airstrikes are going to be only coming in every once in a while. They need to absolutely count for the Allies who have air superiority, while the Germans right now are starting to bring out huge amounts of anti-air guns to at least soften up the American air forces before they can drop their lethal ordnance on the German troops, especially these two 180mm guns, which are going to be basically the lifeblood of the German forces in the center. Absolutely crucial to repelling the American infantry attacks. Also looks like they're going to be starting to fire at the American or British artillery, and they're going to do that with a pretty effective result, although their accuracy definitely seems to be lackluster right now, because very smartly No Name over here decided to fall back with the 25-pounder, thus avoiding the worst of the damage. B-38 doing some strafing runs, but it's going to also find the huge amounts of 20mm. So that's why there were so many anti-air guns being called in. That's because there were 20 mils. Well, the 20 mils aren't exactly going to be all that effective against American forces. I believe the 20mm are generally much more effective against enemy ground forces like infantry. Focke-Wulf 190 being brought in to try to capitalize upon the fact that these Spitfires were forced away by the German AA net, but the Focke-Wulf 190 is going to be forced away by the American AA net with all the Boforses, and it's going to go down to the P-38 Lightning. And if these 20mm had been, instead of 420 mils, a couple of 37mm flak guns, this P-38 Lightning wouldn't have had the chance to actually shoot down Focke-Wulf, I think. It would have been panicked and forced to retreat as quickly as the Focke-Wulf 190 had been from the Boforses. So Bofors definitely proving its worth for Airlander Bloom, and looks like the American and British forces are trying to make an assault in the center, supported by the 2-inch carriers, which have been resupplied by the Bedford supply. And looks like on the right side, the German mechanized forces, the Firefly and the Panzer IV, are still trying to support the German infantry troops, a couple of Panzergrenadiers, in this kind of fight. Here comes a bomber, not even going to be panicking the Firefly because it kind of missed. Here comes another bomber in the center, trying to attack these support half-tracks. Gonna make it only fall back. Not really all that well used, these P-47 Thunderbolts. These have the light bombs, which make them much more effective against the enemy infantry and especially support weapons, such as these flak guns, than against armored vehicles, even something like a half-track, which is lightly armored. There goes an M8, which is definitely a big loss, 100 points, I believe. No, it's 100. Yeah, it's 100 points. So a pretty big loss for the Americans, as it is a very capable recon unit. Although it does expose the fact that the Germans do have a pack gun. Very smartly, Anti-Kebab knows that the pack gun has been spotted and manages to immediately move it away because he's very afraid of Allied artillery retaliation from the 107mm mortar, and also retaliation from Allied airstrikes. There goes the Firefly, which moved up way too close to the American lines and was popped by the Marauder, or not actually from a Piat, which is, I believe, a little bit more shameful for Firefly, as this has a 100-meter range. Let's see if I can find a Ranger Marauder unit to find the range of that unit. Oh, still 100 meters. Okay, never mind. I thought that the... Oh, no. Okay, 200 and 200. Still. I think the Piat is worse in some way. It has less penetration, but... I guess it's fine. Still. Not exactly the best to lose a Firefly to a 40-pointer, I believe, as this Piat squad. And the Piat squad itself, indeed, is not even 40 points, it's 15. It's the transport that bumps it up to 30 points. Yes, 25 points for the MMG carrier. So, 15-pointer destroying a 200-pointer vehicle. Very, very good job from No Namer. The two German artillery guns still working their way and trying to overrun, looks like, these light positions, which is, in my opinion, a bit of a... Oh, no, actually a 17-pounder. No. That's absolutely not a waste of these artillery rounds. 17-pounder, incredibly dangerous to the 12th SS Panzer Division. So, Wooly definitely helping out his ally, Anti-Kebab, with a devastating barrage of artillery. Looks like the counter battery will be finally coming in from another 25-pounder. It looks like another batch of free 25-pounders have been called in by the Brits. I'm very surprised that the Brits decided to not go for any kind of armor. At this point, I would have gone for a couple of tank destroyers to help deal with these Panzer IVJs. Panzer IVJs only have 8 frontal armor, which means that tank destroyers would be very effective against them. And in general, a couple of AT guns, like 17-pounders, are effective. But when the enemy has artillery like this, it's not really as effective as tank destroyers. And also, I would have liked to see a little bit more of a armor presence from our American player, Orlando Bloom, because at this point, he does have access to a couple of very nice command Shermans, which would have helped out some pushes on the left side of the map in general. Looks like he's going to be focusing mostly on, well, like his name suggests, air forces. And there goes a AT gun from one of his airstrikes. Looks like the secondary P-38 was trying to do something, but not really managing to do that. A couple of scouts very nicely pushing up and holding fire in a very tiny little patch of bushwork, which is definitely providing some line of sight to the Americans. I like that indeed. As you can see, quite a lot of units being spotted by that, especially the Panzer IV-J and the SF-18. There goes one of the American Air Forces. Looks like a, not a Brit, you know. I'm pretty, scarred by the war game experience. A Nebelwerfer 42 being brought in by the 17th SS. Very, very effective against enemy foot troops and also light vehicles. There goes a couple of the 2-inch carriers, maybe in a third one from the fire. There we go. All of the British mortars down for the drain. That kind of opens up the possibilities of a German push in the center, although in the center they don't really have any cover to push through, because it looks like all of the buildings in the center have either been occupied by the Americans and the British, or have been completely flattened by the amount of artillery fire that's been going back and forth from both sides. There goes another Panzer IV from a, yes indeed, an M10 tank destroyer, this time from the Americans. Orlando Bloom bringing that out. Exactly what I thought should be done for the German armor that's starting to accumulate around the map. And Anti-Kebab, I think he is making a mistake in spreading around his armor. He had the Firefly and one Panzer IV-J on the right side and another one on the left side. I think that he should be a little bit more concerned in keeping a coherent, cohesive, and united force, especially something like this light American sort of outpost on the left side of the map would be very vulnerable to a big German armor push. A couple of P-38 Lightnings going to be definitely pushing up way too far. One of them goes down to the BF-109, and the second one is going to be forced to retreat by the... no, in fact, even destroyed by the Flak Vierling. 2 Flak Vierlings and the Flak 20mm that are about. Flak Vierlings definitely effective at shooting down enemy aircraft as well, not only in panicking them. In fact, the P-47 Thunderbolts are going to be trying to come in and doing some bombing strikes on, it looks like, a couple of advanced AA guns. They take out one of the flak fearlings, but they go down to the Focke-Wulf 190 response from Anti-Kebab. So the Germans are starting to gain air superiority, which is definitely crucial in this artillery struggle, because both sides have so much artillery that airstrikes are very, very effective against these exposed howitzers. That is to say, if they can take out the AA nets that are supporting said howitzers, which the Germans are indeed a little bit ahead of the curve, because they were able to use that Nebelwerfer 42 to very good effect. Looks like the Nebelwerfer 42, however, went down to one of the airstrikes. So again, these things cut both ways, and they're definitely double-edged, because if your artillery can be destroyed by enemy airstrikes, then theirs can be as well, which is exactly what the Allies did to the Germans. And looks like in the center, there are a couple of Panzergrenadiers straggling about, but not really all that much that the Germans are able to do. Looks like the Americans are going to be trying to make a bit of a push, along with Daimler Little John trying to provide the recon support. The Little John Daimler actually has a huge 14 armor penetration, which is essentially what makes it a very effective unit. You need to absolutely not use it in this way, though. It's not a spearhead. It is something that you use on, for example, the flanks to try to take out enemy armored vehicles, especially something like these Grilles over here, or something like even the Panzer IV-Js are very weak to the Daimler Little John. Of course, you need to be using it against enemy vehicles, not against enemy infantry. It is specifically an anti-vehicle unit. It is definitely wasted on infantry. It's, I believe, 100 points, yes, so quite a bit of an investment, and also, I believe it only has only high optics, so not even the best recon unit that is about the battlefield. Looks like the huge 25-pounder spam from the Brits is starting to pay off in the center, definitely forcing back these German units. However, on the right side, it seems like the Germans have amassed a bit of a force that can stop any American efforts there. Of course, there's also the fact that the left side seems to be starting to build up. There's 2 Panzer IV-Js from Anti-Kebab, even a recon Storch, or Storch, I'm guessing Storch, even a Storch that's going to be spotting at least the mortars over here from Erlando, and providing some support. Looks like a fighter is going to be brought in to try to destroy the Storch, which is definitely going to succeed, or not. Yes, indeed, it is going to succeed, but the 2 fighters that the Americans brought in are definitely in trouble. Here comes a huge response from the Germans, and they both go down. So I'm guessing it was kind of a bait, actually, from Woolley and Anti-Kebab to bring in the Storch, because that's only like 80 points, and the Americans lost like over 300 in the air forces that went there. Also, looks like what the AT gun, which is the only thing that the Americans had on the left side that could counter these Panzers that are being brought in, even a Panther G, is going to go down. So the Americans are definitely weakened by the SF-18 artillery barrage, or SK-18. I thought it was SF-18. Oh well, guess I am wrong. In fact, it looks like the howitzers are being supported by a command unit. Interesting little choice, definitely giving them some veterancy, which is, I'm guessing, going to improve their accuracy a little bit. That's actually a very good choice, because also keeping the command unit here is a pretty cheap way to buff them up, and also pretty safe, because it's not like the armored car is going to go down to any enemy fire when it's supporting the artillery way back in the base, which is, I guess, a pretty good thing. The Americans are going to find victory in 16 minutes if the tide continues to turn in their way. Very good push in the center from the riflemen of the British. They managed to get a bit of a push going and finally destroyed the last remaining pockets of German activity in the industrial town. But, however, on the left side, it looks like the Germans are amassing a huge concentrated push. They even have a Panzer IV-H with the artillery barrage available to it, and of course, the American Sherman with the artillery doesn't actually have a main gun, but the German one does. So you have to be very careful. And it looks like the Brits are bringing in 5 Sherman 2s, along with 2 M4A1 Rhinos from the Americans. So that's a very interesting little expedition. And it looks like there's also a Daimler Little John and a M10 tank destroyer supporting the American counter push. Another M4 Rhino. So that's 8 Shermans, I believe. That's 5 from the Brits and 3 from the Americans, along with an M10 and a Daimler, all being brought in. That's a lot of points. Like, the Sherman 2 is 120, and the Rhino is 130. No, 140. So that is over 1,000, I believe. Maybe over 1,000 points in American armored vehicles. And they're going to run straight into a Jagdpanzer IV, a Stug 4, a Panzer G, a 75mm pack, and a couple of Panzer IVJs. I don't like this at all. I think that the Germans have a very, very good chance of winning this engagement. Looks like one of the armored personnel carriers that was bringing up some American infantry was destroyed, but the infantry is fine, which is, I guess, weird. One of the Shermans instantly goes down to the Panzer IVJ. Second Panzer IVJ starting to enter the fight. Looks like one of the Panzer IVs is going to be forced to retreat by the American firepower. Looks like a couple of smoke barrages being brought in by an 81mm mortar, which is going to force the Americans straight into this very tiny gap into the killing field that is this German force that's pushing up. The Allies absolutely need to redirect their artillery fire into this area of the map now. They need to support their armor push with artillery fire against both enemy vehicles and infantry, but especially against the enemy anti-tank guns, such as the 75er. Where is the 75er the Germans have? There it is. Especially against this one. Jagdpanzer IV are going to be starting to fire at the M4A1 Rhinos. Here comes a huge artillery barrage from the 770mm Panzer IV, and also there's also a Schwebwagen 210mm that can call in some artillery as well. So it looks like the American push, supported indeed also by a 17-pounder, is going to be stalled instantly, and the 17-pounder is going to be destroyed by the 81mm mortar slowly but surely. Not before the 17-pounder does some damage of its own against enemy forces. Here comes also the counter smoke from the 81mm, trying to support anti-kebab. That's an interesting little thing. I wouldn't put the smoke in front of the German units because they're actually effective at long range. They're effective at longer ranges than the American ones, so I would definitely like the German units to stay further back rather than further forward than having to push through the smoke. But oh well, it does look like the Germans are still winning the engagement handily. There goes another Sherman being destroyed, and going head-to-head is absolutely not what the American and British armored forces are meant to do against the 12th SS. 12th SS just pouncing on the very vulnerable American units. Only the Rhinos are able to hold on a little bit more. That's because of their increased armor that they have, but even they are going to go down very, very soon indeed to the fire of these Panthers. Here comes a bit of an airstrike from the Spitfires, only trying to pin down the 75mm pack gun, but here comes the response from the German Air Forces. A couple of Focke-Wulf and MB-109 fighters. At least one of the German planes might go down. This Focke-Wulf 190. No, it does survive. Both of these Spitfires are going to go down to the German Air Force, and indeed, even the third one might go down. Also, a Command M4 being brought in, but that's in Phase C. The Command M4 is not quite as effective as it would have been in Phase 2. You get this Command M4 Sherman in Phase 2 as well for the 2nd Infantry Division, which is one of my units that I like the most for the 2nd Infantry Division because it just provides so much support to your infantry. And infantry is not something that right now Orlando Bloom is using, which is probably good because here comes the Ju-88S to bomb the Shermans. This is the variant with a big bomb rather than the variant with tons of small bombs, which is the one I prefer, the sort of medium carpet bomber Ju-88 that the 17th SS gets. But that's only my preference because I like to destroy enemy stuff in a big area rather than have one big bomb that destroys one enemy unit when I'm playing as the Germans, because the Germans already have enough vehicle support to destroy enemy armor. But that's your choice, I guess. The huge German push on the left is going to finally materialize, and they're going to just surge forward with all of their armor and all of their infantry, crucially, which is not something that the Allies did. They should have at least brought in a couple of recon infantry units to support their armor on the left side, and they should have definitely supported the push with artillery a little bit more. Only now they're starting to redirect artillery fire on the German blob of doom that's approaching their positions, whereas the Germans were able to use their artillery to great effect with the off-map units and even the SF-18s or SK-18s doing some pretty good work. Although they've also been firing in the center of the map as well. Definitely doing a good job at dealing with the 17-pounders along with the mortar, which also helped there. Again, smoke is interesting because I enjoy using the German units at long range, so the smoke in front of the panzers is kind of a contradiction to me. Like, yes, of course, it's good against enemy AT guns, but they should have already known that there was nothing there. They've been blasting this area with artillery to no end. I'm not really sure on that. In fact, 2 DD Shermans from Phase A being called in the desperation by Air, Land, and Bloom, but they're not going to be effective. They've only got 9 armor against the Panzer IVs and Jagdpanzers and Stugs and Panthers that are being brought in by the Germans, which is not going to be enough. So there goes yet another one of these. And very good ambush actually from the Command M4 and the M4A1 Rhino, taking cover behind the trees, popping one of the Panzer IVs before the Command M4 goes down itself. Looks like the M4 Rhino's trying to do something, but the Panther is going to finish it off. The second Sherman actually surrenders to the German infantry in the area, and the Germans are able to push through, but that was a decent attempt at an ambush. Looks like also in the center, a couple of Stug 4s are pushing up, and are definitely going to be good enough to destroy these 25-pounders. M7DD is also going to fall to the fire of these 75mm assault guns, which is going to be enough to at least push the front line a little bit further. And if the Germans can push all the way to the base and swing around and destroy all of these American and British backline units, especially the 25-pounders, they can also essentially cut off this entire infantry force on the right side. They can sweep around with their vehicles and just take these areas and completely cut off the Americans and British in this area. That would be a master stroke of an advance. Of course, the Germans right now are kind of being quite cautious, which is good, because right now they've kind of found their footing again. They've got 15 minutes left. If they can get a pretty good aggressive push going, they're going to be able to win. But if they get a too aggressive push going and then they lose all their forces and all the advantage that they have built up, that's going to be for nothing. So looks like the Germans are going to be focusing on bringing up some infantry to secure this town. I guess I could call it the barracks, yeah, because it looks like a barracks near the train station, which isn't exactly going to go all that well because there's a few American and British fire support units still operating in the area, which is not going to be good for all this infantry. All this infantry is going to get pinned down very quickly by that kind of fire. Although all of the British howitzers are actually out of ammo, and since the British have had to support the Americans, and oh, this P-38 is going to be... Wait, what? What is it dropping on? The Vespa? Yep, destroys the Vespa, actually. Very good job. I thought it was going to be dropping on this huge concentration of German infantry, but I guess that's fine. Very good job at taking out that Vespa. 6-pounder going to go down. Yes, because the British have been forced to support his ally because of the failed push, like with the 6-pounder, he doesn't really have the points to get a Bedford supply vehicle to resupply all of his 25-pounders, which means that at this crucial moment, the Panzergrenadiers have a bit of an opportunity to surge forwards and attack the enemy without fear of American or British artillery fire. Of course, not entirely, as there are, for example, 4 Spitfires being brought in to do some strafing runs on them, devastating the German morale and also devastating their, well, life. Also, the Spitfires are going to be bringing themselves up around and trying to destroy these ME-109s. One of them goes down from just the sheer amount of fire from these autocannons that the Spitfires do have, and the second one is going to go down, so air superiority might go back to the Allies just yet. Of course, this is useful, but not really all that much useful when we start to get into the phase of big armor pushes, because the American Air Forces, unless sort of concentrated very, very well, for example with Typhoon ATs and the Thunderbolts with the heavy rockets, they're not really going to be able to do all that much against the concentrated heavy armor that the Germans have. Looks like also on the right side there's a bit of a I wonder who anti-kebab On the right side, there is a Challenger. Well, this would have been incredibly useful on the left side. I wonder why Mr. No Name decided to bring up a Challenger for the right side of the map. This is a 1,200 range AT weapon, and why is there no... Is there no music? Well, looks like there's no more sound. Hold on. Let me see if... is it gonna crash? Okay, never mind. It seems to have been fixed itself. It was just kind of being a dick. Yes, because that's a really, really big unit. 150 points, 1,200 meter range. It would have been very useful against this armor push. But, alas, it's a little bit too late. Here comes a P-38 lining to try to stimmy the flow of metal that's coming in from the German side. There goes our Land of Bloom. Very good, actually, bombing run, but it's not going to be enough. There goes the surrender from both the Allied forces. And the end of the game, very, very good push from the Germans right at the last possible moment to get the victory in their belt just at the last possible moment. Despite the fact that they have been on the back foot the entire game, they managed to get the strength that is the late game for the Germans, especially with the 17th SS and especially the 12th SS. Very, very powerful vehicles. And the artillery superiority and air superiority of the Allies and the superiority in infantry that they have been able to accrue in the center didn't really was really to no avail to them when there was a huge tide of German steel coming in from the left side. Indeed, for example, this Panther destroying like 3 Shermans, 4 Shermans, 5 Shermans, an AT gun, and an M10. Very, very good job with these Panthers and these Panzer IVs. Concentrate them in one area, which was the mistake that they made in the early game. They didn't really concentrate their forces, or I guess their good units in one area to try to at least push there, which resulted in them losing everywhere, because if you defend everywhere, you defend nowhere. And then in the late game, they managed to at least bring themselves back up. Very good usage of their howitzers on the German part. Not as much on the part of the Allies, although they did use them correctly in the first sort of few minutes when they brought them in to destroy enemy AA nets. They didn't really capitalize upon that with their air force trying to destroy the German guns, and that kind of left them firing for a long time, which was a big, huge pain in the ass for the Americans. But what definitely brought the defeat upon the Allies was a really good push that they weren't able to counter, because they tried to do so with their own armor, which didn't really work out. They should have used anti-tank guns and tank destroyers supported by infantry, which is the strength of the 2nd Division and the Scottish. So I want to thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the cast. Hope you learned something, and I'll see you soon.